Okay, we are on page 302 from your book and we're looking at pie charts today. So just highlighter in hand, and as you can see I've highlighted the first sentence. A pie chart is a good way of displaying information when we want to show how a given quantity is shared out or divided into different categories. Okay. Another thing you're going to highlight is a sector. That's like a portion of pie. So the pie or circle represents the total quantity, and each slice or sector represents the size of the shares. So in this one, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shares or sectors, and each of them represent a different quantity. The size of each slice or sector is in the proportion of the size of the angle at the center of the sector. Okay, so the size of the portions, obviously the purple in this one had the biggest quantity, and it's reflected in the size of the angle. The angle at the center of the circle or pie is 360 degrees. So as you know from a circle has 360 degrees in it. Therefore, the angle at the center of the circle and half of a share of the angle will be half of 360 degrees. That's how you can calculate it. So half of 360 is 180 degrees. The diagram on the right shows how different shares are represented by sectors in a pie chart. If the fraction of a share is a sixth, it is a sixth of the full circle. So it's a number over total multiplied by, usually it's 100 over 1 when you want to change it to a percentage. But when we're talking about angles, you'll multiply it by 360 degrees. So a sixth of 360 degrees is the same thing as on your calculator, a sixth multiplied by 360, and you'll get 60 degrees. Similarly, a tenth of the angle from the center is a tenth of 360. So you can just multiply a tenth multiplied by 360 and you'll get 36 degrees. You are going to go to your notes copy now and just take down a few small notes on pie charts. So I have 1 or 2 small things written down here now. So the first thing is, pie charts are used when a quantity is shared out or divided into different categories. Okay, so that's the first thing. It is in a circular shape and it's always out of 360 degrees. I'm going to do example 1 in your book now, okay, and you can follow along. You'll need to take down the example. If you'd like to take down the example in your notes copy, please feel free to do so. However, if you would prefer, you can just do it in your normal classwork copy. Okay, so this is example 1. Okay, there's 120 first year girls were asked to name their favourite sport, and the results was given by the pie chart. So I need to figure out how many girls played tennis, athletics, hockey, netball as their favourite sport. Okay, so there's 120 girls in a school. And as you can see from the actual pie, so 60 degrees of them played netball, 90 degrees played tennis, 45 degrees played hockey, 120 degrees did athletics, 45 degrees did basketball. If we want to calculate any of these sports, now I know I'm asked for tennis, athletics, hockey and netball, but I am going to do them all. So I'll do the ones that we were asked first. So the first one was tennis. The second one is athletics. Third one is hockey. And the last one that you were asked for there was netball. And the only one that's missing there is basketball, but there are a couple of ways we can get the basketball one. And when it comes to it, I'll explain exactly how you do that. Okay. So in this question, we were given degrees for each one. So I'm just going to write down the degrees for each one. So tennis was 90 degrees. Athletics was 120 degrees. Hockey is 45 degrees. Basketball is also 45 degrees. And finally, netball is 60 degrees. Okay, you would have learned when you want to get a percentage or a value of a number, you'd normally put the number over the total, and to make it a percent, you'd multiply by 100 over 1, but this is going to be slightly different. So your formula is you put the number over the total, and then we're going to multiply by what it's all out of. So there's 120 girls in the school. So if you want to get a degrees out of the total, it'll be 90 out of the total. Degrees is 360 degrees. Okay, and then if we want to get that fraction as a number of students, you will multiply by the 120 girls that are in the class or in the school. So it's going to be 90 divided by 360 multiplied by 120. Now you can grab your calculator, and if you want to first of all do the 90 over the 360 on your calculator, you'll probably quickly realise it's a quarter as a fraction. And a quarter of 120 of means multiply by the 120 students. That means 30 students play tennis or prefer tennis. We apply the same logic to every sport, or to every sport. So it's 120 degrees out of the total. So 120 degrees out of the total is 360, multiplied by the total number of students in the class. That means a third of the students play athletics or do athletics. So that's a third, multiplied by 120 is 40 students. Hockey is next. You'll see that hockey and basketball actually have the same degrees. And that's why I was saying you might be able to actually calculate it without realising it. So it's 45 degrees divided by 360 degrees and multiplied by the 120 students. So that is 45 divided by 360, which is an eighth, multiplied by 120 is 15. Okay, so 15 students also play basketball, but I'm just going to talk through a few different ways of getting that. Netball is next. Netball is 60 degrees out of 360 degrees, multiplied by the 120 students. That's 20 students prefer netball. Now, we know there's 120 students in the class. We've accounted for 30 and 40 and 15 and 20. Okay, so what you could do is just add up these numbers and take them away from 120 pupils inside in the class. That is one way of doing it. So I could do that for there, 30 and 40 and 15 and 20. It's 105. You could take that away from the 120 and you get 15 there as well. You could also see that the 45 degrees for hockey and basketball are also the same. So you'd multiply by the 120 as well, and you're getting the 15. Okay, that's the second way of doing it. Okay, so there's a number of different ways of calculating the last one if you haven't been given the angle. It's just important to keep an eye on that. So that's example 1. All you had to do was calculate the number of students that were in each grouping. We're now going to look at example 2. Example 2 is when you've been given the basic information and again the total number of people, and what you now need to do is calculate them into angles. And I'm going to show you how to draw a pie chart as well. So this second example again needs to be neatly put into either your notes copy or your normal copy. But I'm just going to write out the information. So we've oil, gas, electric, I'm just going to call that ESB, and then solid fuel. Okay, and that represents 30, 24, 12 and 6. So in this survey, 72 people were asked what type of heating they had in their homes. The results are given below. Draw a pie chart to illustrate this information. Before you can draw a pie chart, you have to do the calculations for the pie chart so you can see how big each of the angles will be. Okay, and it needs to be clearly written on your sheet. So for each one, you're going to do a calculation for oil, gas, ESB, and then solid fuel. Okay, and like we've been looking at when you want to do fractions or whatever, you'll put the number over the total, but this time we want it out of a pie chart, so we'll have to multiply by 360 degrees. I'm going to write that formula down. The number over the total. If you wanted a percent, you'd multiply by 100. If you wanted out of a number of students, you'd take the number of students that were in the class. In the last one, it was 120. In this one, we want it to fit in a pie chart, so it has to be multiplied by 360 over 1. The same principle applies for every single question you do, whether it's percentages, whether it's pie charts. If it's a fraction of a number, you put the number over the total and multiply by whatever you're trying to get. If it's percent, it's 100. If it's degrees, it's 360, and so on. Okay, using that logic, we're going to answer and get the degrees for oil, gas, ESB, and solid fuel. So for oil, it's 30 out of the total. The total was 72. And we want to make this fit in a pie chart, so we multiply by 360 over 1. Just multiplying by 360 will do the exact same thing. So 30 over 72 multiplied by 360 is 150 degrees. Next one, gas. It's 24 people said they use gas over the total, which is 72, multiplied by 360 degrees because we want it to fit on a pie chart. So that's 24 over 72 and then multiply by 360 is 120 degrees. Next one, ESB, 12 out of 72 multiplied by 360. Now, because double the amount of people choose gas, I'm expecting this number to be half, but we'll do it anyways. I'm expecting it to be 60, but 12 divided by 72 multiplied by 360 is 60 degrees. And finally, you can see that 6 is again half of 12, so half of the 60 degrees will be 30. But we'll do the calculation anyways. 6 over 360 multiply, 72 people. 6 over 72 multiplied by 360 is 30 degrees. The most important thing that you should do at this stage is you should add up these numbers and double check that they add up to 360, that you haven't accidentally put something into the calculator incorrectly. So I'm adding up 150, 120, 60 and 30 and I get 360. If you were getting something less than 360 there, you know you've made a mistake. Bearing that in mind, you are now going to start doing a pie chart. I'm just going to move up my sheet to make it a little bit clearer. When you do any sort of diagram, you put down the pen and you grab your pencil for this. You'll also need a compass and you're going to need a protractor. Okay, so in order to do any pie chart, this is what you need. Okay, when it comes to doing a pie chart, the first thing you need is the center of the circle you're going to draw. And what I suggest you do is you mark a crosshairs, that's like a little X on your page as to where that's going to be. You can see that I've done it on a cross of a box, and that's the easiest thing to do. Don't choose the middle of a box or anything like that. Keep it on the center of crosshairs. It makes it easier. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put your pencil into your compass, and some people get confused as to how far out or how much the pencil needs to go into the compass, but there's an easy check. When you put these two together, the tip of the pencil and the tip of the actual compass should be in line. You don't want a situation where the pencil is below it, because when you want to draw something, a small circle, it won't fit. And you don't want a situation where the pencil is above the point, because again, it won't draw what you're looking for. So what you want is that the pencil and the tip of the actual compass are in line with each other. Okay, tighten your compass. Stretch it out. It doesn't matter how big the circle you draw is. It is easier when the circle is big enough on your page. You will see on my page now, I'm just going to make sure, what is that distance? Mine is it's a radius of about 50. That means the diameter is going to be 100. Now, again, some people hold the compass up here, which is fine, but you don't have the same control as if you hold it down low. So you can see with me there, I'm drawing that down low. So I can lean on the pencil as it's going around. Okay, so that's the circle done. Okay, so there's a few steps in doing that, and if you want to, you can do this in your notes copy. So number 1, find center. Number 2, draw a circle. And the circle needs to be relatively large. Okay. Number 3, draw a center line. Now the center line isn't going all the way across, it's just essentially a radius is what I'm doing. So you can take the pencil out of the compass now, you're using this pencil, and from the center point, draw it directly out to the edge of your pie. Okay, so this is kind of giving me a starting point to draw. Now it's always best to use the biggest angle and then work to the smallest angle, just because that's easiest with your protractor. Now with your protractor, there is a center point on it, and then there's a center line, and then there's a vertical center line. And this is why it's beneficial to have this drawn on axis on your copy, okay? So the center point needs to go on the center point of the pie. That black line needs to align with this line that I've just drawn, and the center line, the 90 degrees, needs to be on the 90 degree line to my sheet. Okay, pop that down, making sure that black line which says 0 on it is on the line I've just drawn, and make sure the vertical line is on the 90 degrees. And what I'm measuring is 150. So where I started at 0, so we're working on the inside measurements now, and we're going all the way around to 150. 150 and 30 look to be the same. It's 150 on the inside, it's 30 on the outside. When you get that point, join it back to the center point. Okay, really neatly with a ruler and a pencil, and you can then write in that that is oil. And you're going to write in 150 degrees. The next one we're going to do is 120. But it's really important, you always start off where you finished off last. So this is the last line I drew, and that's taken. So my protractor now is going to go, that's on the 0 line now, and on the center point, making sure that that's on 0. And again, we're still working on the inside line. We're going to go all the way around to 120, which lines up with 60. And it looks to be just a vertical line, and that represents gas. That was 120 degrees. And the next one is 60 and then 30, and we can measure these at the same time. 60 and 30 makes 90. So you can put it on the last line again, apologies. 0 to 60. 60 and 30 makes 90. And that's why it's handy to leave the smallest measurement till last, because you'll never really have to measure it. Okay, so ESB, or electricity, I'm going to put in the actual name now. And solid fuel. So that was 60 degrees and 30 degrees. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my compass for a second time. I'm going to line it up like I did earlier on, and I'm going to draw a little circle around the angles to make it nice and neat. Don't have to do this, but it's just showing that in that distance there is 150 degrees and 120 degrees and 60 degrees and 30 degrees. If you'd like now, you can colour this in. I suggest you don't do it in marker. Colouring pencil, lightly colouring them in is perfect, okay? And you can kind of get the same advantage that they have done in this as well. So it does make it a little bit neater when you do it in colour then afterwards. So just a recap on what we've looked at so far. There is 360 degrees in a full circle. So if you're missing one, like you will be in question 1, you'll add up the 3 other measurements and you'll take your answer away from 360 and you'll get the value of X in each case. You're going to be doing a few questions now, and essentially it's going to be question 1 to 4. 1 to 4 is what we're going to look at now. So your classwork, and you're going to join me live is going to be on page 303, 304. And it's questions 1 to 4. Okay, so I'll see you in our live class, and hopefully you've everything taken down that you need, and see you soon.